Before we get into our poetry lesson today, I wanted to share this book with you about animal poems, Flutter and Hum. These poems are not only wonderfully written, but the illustrations are amazing. On the left-hand side, you will see the English version, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see the Spanish version. And the illustrations, please pay attention to the illustrations too. There's a lot of detail in them. Snake. Slithering through the grass, the sinuous snake is writing a slippery poem with his body. But his alphabet is too simple. He only knows one letter, S. Turtle. The turtle hides in her shell, but maybe there is space, a place for hidden treasure, just for pleasure. She could put an emerald and a ruby or two there. When she walks, she listens to the rattle of the gemstones. That is why she goes so slowly. She doesn't want to spill her secrets. Heron. In the mirror of the lake are two herons with one leg. Splash, one heron, two legs. Crow. On this gray day, on this gray street, the black crow caws. He hops, stops, and stares at a yellow umbrella, the only sun shining today. Today's lesson is repetition. We've talked about alliteration, two or more words with the same beginning sound, letter sound in the sentence. And today we're going to look at repetition, words or phrases that are repeated through the poem. Notice I wrote these techniques in my writer's notebook. Feel free to do the same in yours. These are great notes just to keep beside you as you're writing. So repetition, again, is words or a phrase that an author repeats. I'm going to share a couple poems out of this book, Book of Animal Poetry. Our theme today seems to be animals, so let's continue with some repetition and see how these authors have used repetition. Riddle. No matter where I travel, no matter where I roam, no matter where I find myself, I always am at home. Sniffed the snail, if in its shell, this fact is true of me as well. Notice no matter where was repeated in the first three lines. A poem about penguins. Listen to what is repeated in this poem. Penguins waddle, penguins stroll all around the cold South Pole. Penguins slide, penguins swim, penguins never look too slim. Penguins play, penguins dress, always in their Sunday best. So penguins was repeated in that, and not only is penguins repeated, but it's also giving us information about penguins. It's a nice picture of our little buddy penguins there. And the last poem for repetition, Beavers in November. This stick here, this stick there, mud, more mud, add mud, good mud. That stick here, this stick there, mud, more mud, add mud, good mud. You pat, I gnaw, I pile, you store. This stick here, that stick there, mud, more mud, add mud, good mud. You guard, I pack, I dig, you stack. That stick here, that stick there, mud, more mud, add mud, good mud. I trim, you mold to keep out cold. This stick here, that stick there, mud, more mud, add mud, good mud. So a few things repeated in this poem. this stick here, that stick there, as well as our phrase that's repeated, mud, more mud, add mud, good mud. So these are some ways that authors use repetition in their poetry. I have tried my own poem, and I titled it A Time To. Do know that I did go back at the very end of my poem to add my title. That seems to be what works best for me. I like to get my thoughts and ideas down on the paper, and then I go back and I think, okay, so what would be a good title for this poem? A time to. A time to rest, a time to play, a time to read, a time to say, a time to laugh, a time to live, a time to take, a time to give. A time to is my repetition in my poem. So remember, as you are writing poems, please remember alliteration. You can always include alliteration. And give a try with repetition today, repeating of words or phrases in your poem.